Good morning, everyone. This is Sherry. Welcome back to Crafty Acts of Kindness, the simple journal tutorial that we're doing together. It's called the Come Along and Craft with Me series. And this journal I've already started to get it going, and then we'll go through the process as we go along. So my cover is already made and lined, and I chose my pages that I wanted to use. I mixed and matched and I used printed and non-printed and turned some in, so the print was on the outside or the print was on the inside. And I rounded the corners. So let me get you to this point of where we can add the pages inside the cover. So first, you're going to take your cover sheet that you chose and cut it out to be 8.5 by 5.5. To me, this works better because then my cardstock and my cover sheet are both the same size, and I don't have to worry about turning them afterwards. So you're going to glue the card sheet to the cardstock, or the cover sheet to the cardstock, using a glue stick. And work quickly and try to use a heavy layer of glue, and pressing hard as you're going along. Start on one side and work the other. Don't try to glue the whole thing at one time because the glue will dry and then it won't stick. So after it dries, which only takes a few minutes, you're going to trim it down to the proper size. And I folded my cover sheet first so I would know I would at least have that part creased. And this is where, if your edges don't stick or haven't stuck, you'd go back in and just glue the edges. Usually it's the corners I have trouble with. See, I'll fix that after. But since this is just for the tutorial, I'll leave it for now and not waste time. So at this point, I'm going to round the edges of my journal cover. I have a crocodile corner trumper. You can use one of these. Works great. Or, I'll show you on this piece of cardstock, you can use a pair of scissors. And I believe there are other corner cutters. If you have them, use them. I like the corners rounded, so that's just the way I decided to go. You may choose to leave yours straight. That's up to you. So now that we've got the cover, this is where you would ink the edges if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to use shoe polish. You can use ink or whatever, and I just dab mine. This is saved for the shoe polish. Take a scrap piece of paper and put it underneath, and then just work your edges round and round. You don't have to use brown. You could use a color that accents your journal. Lots of times I've used like a teal color or a blue if the journal had those colors in it, or pink. And that also makes a pretty edging if you do that. And I like to make sure that the corners are. And you'll probably want to do a little bit on the inside, so I would just take the edge of this and just go over it. And if you use shoe polish after it dries, you don't smell the shoe polish, so I don't worry about that. So that's what it looks like inked up. I'll probably put a little more on this side. As you can see, this kind of wore through a little bit on the fold, and we can, probably doesn't matter any because when we stitch you're not going to see it, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. So now I've got my pages that I've chosen for this particular, and I didn't cut enough for the whole project that we're doing, because I will eventually be working in the other book. So I've got some green and blue and some plain sheets of green and some lined paper, some printed paper, graph paper. So, just pick some coordinating colors. So I usually take the first this is what we did to the cover, so you can go back and refer to that. Now we're doing the pages. So I usually take the first 3 pages and take, you can't do them all at one time because it just won't go through this. So I line it up and trim it off. And I think I actually ended up cutting my cover, but that's all. If you cut the cover, you can go back and trim it as well. Won't be the first time I've done it. Probably won't be the last either. So there. Wrap around the corners again. So mine's not going to be exactly 8.5 or 5.5 by 4.5. So the first pages should fit in there nicely. If you find they still need to be trimmed, find a straight line on your cutter or your paper folds. Run your cutter over it again. Now that should be right. So then I take the next group of pages. Now all your pages are not going to be the same width, so obviously some of them have to be trimmed, but if they're still in the stack when you're trimming, that's fine. Take the next group, do the same thing, except this time you've already taken about 1/8 of an inch off. So take a little less than 1/4 of an inch off. And that should work. Take it, put it in the book, measure it. If it's still sticking out, take it out. Use one of the straight lines on the... I usually try to use the edge or one of the lines to make sure that it's straight. Because if it's not exactly the same size, I don't really care. I just want it straight. And I want it to fit. Pop it in there. And there you go. Some people don't care if their pages stick out. I happen to. The only time I don't is if I'm making a... There goes Benny. Is if I'm making a large journal and I'm going to put lace on the edges and decorate the edge of the front of the journal. Because that doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take the last ones that I have here. I'm not going to do the whole group of whatever pages we're doing for the journal. And same thing. And this one I cut about 1/4 of an inch off. And there you have that. So they all fit in there quite nicely. So now I take these back out. And we crop around the corners of the pages again. Now keep them in the order you cut them in, because remember the inside ones are not as wide as the outer ones. I hope you're getting the gist of what I'm doing. If not, just send me a message and I'll be happy to go over it with you. I'm sure there are better tutorials out there than what I can provide. But this is the way I do it. This is the way I found it to be the easiest for me. You can use a guillotine cutter, but you got to be careful when you do that to make sure that it doesn't pull too many pages at one time, because it will destroy the edges. And that's what happens when you use your regular paper cutter. If you try to cut them all at one time, it doesn't cut through them all, so then it destroys the edges or bends them down or whatever, so they're not perfect anymore. So I like to do a few at a time, shaving off an inch, a quarter of an inch to an eighth of an inch, and just keep it going, so that way the inside pages will have to be smaller than the outer pages, otherwise they'll stick out because they get bunched up in the center of the journal. And so there you have that. And at this point, this is where you would also ink the edges of your pages if that's what you want. So I hope you can understand this. I hope I'm not too confusing and muffled, but you're going to select the pages you want to use. Use a variety. Pages may vary in length and width, and that's supposed to be width, not width. As my journal shows, fold the pages in half and, start taking, a few pages at a time. It could be 2 to 3 pages, and start trimming them down an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch, or whichever works. Just keep measuring to make sure that they fit back in there. And I use a paper cutter. Now, you can use a straight edge or an X-Acto knife. I have not done that yet. And, or you can use a guillotine cutter, whichever works best for you. Use scissors and a ruler if you want. It doesn't really matter as long as you get the pages, somewhat even, so that they stick inside of the journal and, they're not sticking outside. And remember to keep them in order after you trim them, or they won't go back in where they belong. So I think that's it for today. Next up, I think that I'll probably come back with inked edges on the pages, and then we'll stitch it, and then we'll start to decorate some of the pages. Have a good rest of your weekend. If you have any questions, let me know. You can find me in Crafty Acts of Kindness. You can send me an email at billiein, BILLIEIN @yahoo.com, or just contact me through Messenger. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.